Hello, good morning students. Please subscribe the channel, drop a like, share and comment. This is Progressive Monthly Magazine, August 2025, exercise number 24 on the speed of 100 words per minute. Start. As I read about these experiments, their successes and failures, the groping towards the discovery of truth and about his prolonged struggle with himself and how he forged the gem-like purity of his personality out of what seemed rather ordinary and unpromising material in the beginning, I came to see something of the great picture of his development and to realize that this was no ordinary person. Here was a man who was working on himself as a jeweler works on an uncut diamond. Also, he was extraordinarily introspective and self critical. He judged himself as ruthlessly as I was going to say as others, but I cannot do so because he judged them not ruthlessly but compassionately. So, how shall I put it? While he judged others compassionately, he judged himself as ruthlessly, as if he were a criminal before the bar of his own conscience, of the still small voice which continued to whisper to him all his life till it was strong enough to drown the sound of world noises. I thought of many of his great contemporaries, Tagore, Sapru, Nehru's, Patel, who were, so to speak, to the manner born of great families, usually with first class education and cut out for the role of leadership by their heredity, their environment, and their personality. On the other hand, if you look at the early or even middle age photographs of Gandhi, you see no Apollo like beauty, no charisma, no clearly discernible signs of his destined greatness. Even in his personal appearance, you see the miracle of the Spirit gradually permeating and transforming matter. The recruit in the ambulance corps of the Boer army or the barrister who started practice in South Africa might be anyone. But look at some of the photographs of his later years. I am thinking of one photograph in particular with a far away look in his eyes as if talking with God, and the thoughtfulness, the composure, the compassion of Buddha in the face. What a difference! His whole life, as he said, was thus a continuous experiment in the search of truth. He was always seeking, always learning, always ready to learn. As he has pointed out in his preface to The India of My Dream, I am not at all concerned with appearing to be consistent. My experiments in the political field are now known not only in India but to a certain extent to the civilized world. In my search after truth, I have discovered many new ideas and learnt many new things. Old as I am, I have no feeling that I have ceased to grow inwardly. So, weighing every step he took in the political as well as in other field in the scale of moral values, he grew not only in mind, which is not so rare, but also in the power of the spirit, working out an amazing harmony in what are usually considered discordant elements in most men's personality. His main inspiration in life was God as he conceived him, but he realized early that after God, the source of power and inspiration for work lay in the people whose service was his life's highest ideal. He could not serve them fully unless he was able to identify himself with them completely to such an extent that they could irresistibly feel one with him. He attuned himself in his way of life to the deprived, the exploited, the poor, the hungry, the ignorant, the who constituted the large majority in the country. He had seen that most of the national leaders in the early decades of the century lived a life which was, as a rule, quite cut off from the life of the masses. They did not speak in their languages or dress like them or live in their style and were not really concerned with their problems or their moving and miserable condition. They were more concerned with the protection of their individual and class interests. Gandhiji changed all that. A man of the people, he equated himself with the people quietly, passionately, sincerely, without the fanfare claims which the later champions of the poor and the exploited have made fashionable. He deliberately reduced his standard of living to that of the poorest and the lowliest so that they may look on him as one of themselves and may feel no hesitation in opening their hearts to him. The irrepressible and well beloved dear Naidu did once say, with her great humor, that it takes a great deal to keep Bapu in poverty. But no one can deny that he ate, dressed, travelled, and lived as an ordinary poor villager would and managed to control completely the urge to seek physical comforts and carefully cultivated the capacity of non possession. As days went by, I saw I had to throw overboard many other things which I used to consider as mine, and a time came when it was a matter of positive joy to give up these things. Exploring the cause of that joy, I found that if I kept anything as my own, I had to defend it against the whole world.